In a world desperate to tear itself apart, only one man, and some other people, stand in the way of total destruction. Together they will right the wrongs, make bad good, and single-handedly destroy evil, together. Who is this man, you may ask? This man is Geoff.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Geoff Jones and Friends Make It Better, the show that takes one of life's little annoyances, gives him a microphone, a guest and a podcast to quite simply make it better. On this episode, I'm delighted to welcome medically retired veteran in recovery, comedian Jay Saunders. Jay, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Very well.
You're kind of back off the high from the Brighton Fringe.
Yeah. We've just done 3 nights at the Brighton Fringe. It's I work with a charity called Project Recce that runs a side shoot called Project Comedy, where we get wounded, injured, and sick veterans and veterans of any description, if you like, into stand-up comedy for their own well-being and the obvious transferable skills from it. And for the first time ever, we ran our first ever Fringe show. We believe it's the first ever Fringe show run by veterans. 3 veterans doing stand-up comedy. We had a riot. We had some beautiful audiences. And do you know what? I think we changed a few attitudes out there as well. So we had a spectacular time with laughter involved.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear, Jay. And I know that obviously what we're making better tonight kind of follows or feeds into that, doesn't it? So please, without further ado, what is it we're making better today?
Making sure that people understand the difference between mental health and a psychiatric injury. So what is a psychiatric injury? And don't think you've got to treat them the same things that work for mental health don't necessarily work for psychiatric delivery. So don't make their lives harder. And you can do this by having fun. Once we understand this stuff, we can actually have fun. But there's a big difference between mental health and a psychiatric condition.
You know, Jay, I mean, this is a fantastic topic because first of all, I'm someone who has, I suppose, lived with mental health and around that environment, but none kind of this other side that kind of the other side that you're talking about. So I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to put right. I'm ready to put my foot in it. But ultimately, I'm ready to work with you to make it better. So come on, give me the bones of it. Explain to me the situation.
Let's take it from my perspective. So I did 23 years in the British military. I was in the Royal Navy. I was a lieutenant commander in the Royal Navy. And by the end of my career, I ended up having to be discharged with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I joke about how I got it because I spent most of my service on the ground commanding soldiers. So a sailor commanding soldiers, no wonder I got PTSD. There was no way I was going to survive. The reality was, some of the stuff I saw and did out there was absolutely horrific. And it's permanently rewired my brain. But people hear the term PTSD and they go, oh, it's a mental health issue. And we've done wonders with mental health. We're now talking about mental health. But people think it's all the same thing. So they'll talk about my anxiety, my depression, my social anxiety, etc. But unfortunately for me, they're symptoms of my condition. They are not my condition. Okay. What's happened to me is I've had a permanent rewire of the brain. My amygdala is always in fight or flight. I'm constantly having psychotic episodes where I'm reliving previous military traumas and what have you. It's those that cause the depression. It's those that cause the anxiety. So, and I had depression before this all happened, and I know how you work through depression, and potentially depression can be cured. And it can be, you can make it that much better. I can never be cured of PTSD. All I'll ever be able to do is manage it. So that's the distinction. So somebody with schizophrenia, they end up learning how to manage it. But it's not something they can ever be cured of. It's that subtle difference between, oh yeah, I know what PTSD is, it's mental health. Take a few tablets and you'll be fine. And it is it's that thing you end up hearing those statements and it winds up your PTSD. It's all like, it's not about taking tablets. It doesn't do it.
So yes, so I mean, so what you're talking about. So there's nothing so kind of physical. So no physical injury from service. It's purely an experience, and your brain is essentially just learned how to deal with situations kind of in a certain way, and now that's just how it's to deal with it.
There's a very subtle difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. PTSD is where you've experienced a very significant trauma, and then your brain has rewired itself to protect you from future traumas in the future. Yeah. Complex PTSD is where you've experienced multiple significant traumas. Now, as you can imagine, so somebody that's been in a car crash can get PTSD. A woman that's ended up experiencing a sexual assault will end up with PTSD. As you can imagine, within the military, when you're on a deployment, it happens back to back to back, and you're constantly firefighting, and sometimes literally firefighting, and your brain rewires itself to protect itself. You return back to the normal world, and you cannot break those pathways. So somebody will come up behind me, bang, I'm suddenly back in Sierra Leone. I think it's an infectious Ebola patient infecting me, going to give me the disease, and I react the way I did when I was out there fighting the Ebola epidemic. I see somebody in distress, I automatically assume it's somebody with Ebola going through infectional Alzheimer's, and I'm going to be infected again, and I've got to protect myself. Suddenly, I don't see what's in front of me. I see what I saw when I was out there dealing with it.
To me, I'm just so far away from that lifestyle, that kind of experience. It's kind of quite mind-blowing. I mean, I've got friends who've been in the forces. No one really talks about those experiences. You talk about the good times, the time they lost a mate and you're late back on the ship and all these kind of things, but never actually kind of what you've just kind of highlighted there, and even that as a memory which is kind of linking itself to modern bits. So that's to me, that's mind blowing. Not mind blowing. That's probably the wrong phrase, but
here's a random one for you. Am I allowed to use swear words within the podcast? Is that something you're happy with?
One of our guests said the C word 17 times, so you crack on.
Well, I don't go as far as I don't drop the C bomb. But let's take one of the jokes I use in my routine. So I've got an assistance dog. I've got a PTSD assistance dog called Hawk. He's beautiful. He comes on the stage with me, and I explain why he's there. But I talk about these flashbacks. That's what people call them, flashbacks. So they're actually called disassociations. They are psychotic episodes. So the way I refer to it in my set is, when I go through these disassociations, I re-experience those military traumas, those moments where I end up reliving those moments of military blood, shit, and gore. It's effectively like watching Suella Braverman's sex tape. Unfortunately and ironically, it's the least offensive thing that woman's done in the last few years. She could have easily called it Rwanda romped or buggered in a boat. Now, that's how I can end up. You can talk about, PTSD is horrible. It's awful. It's evil. It's debilitating. But when you put it in that terms to people, if we can take the fear away from it and realize it's not something you can take a tablet for, and they understand what somebody with PTSD is living through, bang, we've already made a difference. And that's why I love talking about my PTSD on the stage. It is that power to talk about something really uncomfortable that people don't really necessarily want to hear, but you can put it in terms of something as ridiculous as Suella. I do point out for legal reasons, obviously Suella Braverman has not released a sex tape that we know
not officially released.
But if we joke about it in that fashion, people gain a greater understanding in a comical way, so they're not disturbed.
And first of all, that's one thing I love about comedy is being able to express yourself, because people will come and watch. And I mean, how do you promote that kind of act? Do you hide it from them and smack them when they're in there, or do you give them some prep?
I give them no warning. I'm lucky enough that I'm on the 10-minute circuit. Yeah, I've not made it to the 15-minute page yet. I've had a couple of semi-paid gigs, you know, the ones where you've ended up with 10 or 15 quid for doing a gig and what have you. It's covered your bus fare and a beer. And I just turn up. I just turn up and hide because I've got an assistance dog. And it's the shock of capture they go through that when they introduce me and I walk on and I've got black Labrador wearing a blue assistance dog jacket on him. And I just walk on the stage. And the first thing I say is, right, first and foremost, can everybody see the dog? And then I'll say, yes. Well, thank fuck for that, because I thought I was having another psychotic episode. And then I can go into the fact that I have PTSD. So they've got zero warning that I'm going to do it. I just go out there and start taking the piss out of PTSD.
Do you ever have people, and this is something which you find an awful lot these days, and not to segue too much, but do people kind of almost get offended on your behalf and who have nothing to do with PTSD and actually, I don't know, complain that you shouldn't be talking about it, or do people challenge you on it?
I've been cancelled from a gig. I've been cancelled from a gig when they found out that was my material. And he went, that it's too much of a trigger warning. And I'm there going, you've got guys coming up on the stage making rape jokes, but I'm not PTSD.
That's not a serious promoter, is it?
Mental health and psychiatric conditions are still a social taboo. But let's flip it on its head where it turns into something positive. The number of times I've finished a gig and I've had some random person literally come up and hug me and say, that's the first time I've laughed about my PTSD. And that's been prison officers, policemen, former servicemen, and what have you, going, it's the first time I've ever laughed about my PTSD. So I've had more of those than I have the single time I was told, no, we're not booking you because you're too much of a trigger warning.
And that's good. I mean, that makes it all worth it. I mean, you went out there to educate, but maybe not. Well, I suppose if there are people in the audience as well, that's the kind of who suffer from PTSD, then it's a massive bonus, isn't it? But the education side was that kind of the main instigator behind it?
No, what actually led to it was, so I took up stand-up comedy during lockdown 2. I learned via Zoom with an amazing bloke called Jay Saunders from Laughing Horse Comedy. And, it was lockdown 2, so you remember what it's like during 2020. There were no gigs. And there were no gigs until the end of effectively 2021 was the first time I could actually do a physical gig. I did my first ever physical gig thanks to a previous guest of yours, Matt Roseblade. He gave me my first gig at Puns and Roses. So I had just done loads and loads of Zoom gigs, and I still had the safety blanket of having loads of notes around my screen so I could just work it. It wasn't a set list; it was a full-on freaking script around the screen. But no, and I was just doing standard comedy, and then somebody turned around to me and went, "Well, when you go on the stage, you taking Hawk with you?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Have you done any material about Hawk and PTSD?" And I went, "Well, why would I?" And I went, "I'm sorry, if you go to a play and there's a gun on the stage in the first act, somebody better use it in the second act. You cannot walk onto that stage with a dog and not address the fact." And that's reshaped my comedy to start talking more about life experiences and what have you. I do the standard materials about things like the fact that I'm absolutely repulsive to women. I'm well aware that I'm a visual contraceptive. I do Tinder gags. I do political gags. But there is an undercurrent all the way through of, this is me, this is my life. And I've almost found it's like a passion to raise awareness for guys and girls that are suffering the same way as I am. Yeah. So that, if they encounter somebody with PTSD, they could actually turn around, I saw a comedian talking about this. And does this happen to you? And does that happen to you? And they won't be afraid to ask that question because they've heard it in a comic phrase.
Yeah. And and obviously it's not being, it's not you taking the piss out of it. It is you using comedy to, I don't know, explain to people who may, like me, who would struggle to kind of understand fully what it means. I mean, I will, and this is in no way to demean, I meant in a demeaning way, but I refer to my dog Neville. He's a Romanian rescue, and I say he's got PTSD because he was rescued. He was rescued from a kill shelter. Yeah, beaten and attacked all day, every day, and so when people say, yeah, so he can't really be around people unless there's a long process of him getting used to it. And it was, so we say he had PTSD because if he sees something or hears something, if he Labradors, brown or black Labradors, he hates them.
I think that's a beautiful way to actually explain it. And actually, here's the horrible part: people will be more understanding about a dog going through it than they will do a human. They will turn around to a human and say, zip up your man coat, it's time to pull on your big boy pants and go and take that tablet and just be normal like the rest of us. But they'd never do that to a dog that's gone through that. So I think that's a beautiful analogy to, if a dog was showing these behaviors, what would you do for it? You show it love, care, and give it some space.
But also that is almost a detriment as well, because he gets really anxious when we go for a walk. And so if someone comes towards us, he will start getting really kind of barking. And so when people come over or get close, I was like, oh, he's so he's very anxious. He's really anxious. And they're like, oh, don't worry, my Fluffy will get on well with him, or my Fluffy loves everyone. And what I'm telling you is to leave him alone. So actually what I started saying, using more words like, no, he's not friendly, not, he's not to mix, he's not friendly, these kind of negative words about him, when it's just because they don't understand. I'm not trying to draw alignments with your condition and my dog, but it's
because I'll end up turning around and saying, be cautious, because I can get very defensive. I can end up needing to force my own space and what have you. You could be using that same language about your dog. Like, don't come near him because he will become very defensive. And that's a more protected term than saying he's not friendly. I'm as friendly as fun, but treat me the wrong way and the PTSD can come back and I will end up standing my ground and creating my own space.
And what you just said there in itself is educated, because and now I'm just essentially using Neville as an analogy, but it's other people's understanding or lack of understanding of what he or of a person with PTSD would go for. And also it's really sad actually that, you're right. I think there is more tolerance and love and help for a dog than there is a former serviceman or someone from the police force and all these things who
it's equally like you said about when people are approaching your dog and you go, oh, but my Fluffy does this and blah. It's the well-intended ignorance that can actually cause problems. So it's sort of like, I turn around, I've always got to sit with my back to a wall, for example. So I'll find a little corner so I can get my back to a wall so I've got full scope of vision to make sure I don't get triggered. And I've had people go, can my family sit in this corner? Because it just gives us a better view. And I'll be like, me and the dog, and I'll just be going, actually, I've got PTSD. This is where, this is the way it makes me feel safe. And I've had somebody turn around to me and go, oh, don't worry. If you sit up there, you'll be fine. I mean, my mum suffers with depression and she can do it. And I'm there going, yeah, your mum's got depression. I've got PTSD.
Oh, you did.
It's a different thing. So it's they don't mean any offense by it because they've seen people, and I'm not belittling mental health issues, but it's different.
Yeah,
it is different. It's like comparing stubbing your toe to being a double amputee in a wheelchair. Now that's belittling things, but it's that thing. There are distinct differences between the two.
Yeah. No, and different things. So, like I say, massive or a big difference in PTSD. And I'm assuming, for things like mental trauma, physical trauma, there's so many different. It's a scope for mental health, but when you have something as severe as PTSD, it can't be lumped in with everything. And I don't say that because I take mental health extremely seriously. I'm a massive advocate for it. This is a massive education for me on PTSD. Even knowing people who have said they have PTSD and talking about my dog how I do, talking to you, Jay, is really, it's kind of opening my eyes on just actually that physical effects that you go through and what others will go through, but also the reasons why, because it's a what you mentioned, like a fight or flight situation kind of which can just snap in.
Yeah, and I'll be honest about it. I feel like I've got imposter syndrome with PTSD because I got my PTSD through humanitarian ops. So my job is I was out in Sierra Leone fighting the Ebola virus.
Yeah.
My mates with PTSD, I've got it through combat. So I feel as though I shouldn't have PTSD. I should have been able to man up to it. But I was losing. In the district I was looking after, I was losing between 60 and 120 people a week. And when you actually saw them dying, bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose, going through dementia, if you just shook hands with them, that could transfer enough virus to kill you. I came into direct contact with the virus on 3 separate occasions. I've eventually come to the point where I go, okay, I'm allowed to have PTSD. I don't need imposter syndrome. But when I see the symptoms of my mates that have gone through conflict, that when they get triggered, they can literally go into fight flight. They can, they'll be completely oblivious because they're in a psychology episode and swinging out and making contact with people. I've known friends of mine waking up from one of these episodes, strangling their own wife in their beds because they thought that they were being attacked. So exactly as you said, it is a spectrum. There are grades and what have you. I'm pretty fortunate. It's horrible what I go through, but compared to what some of my mates go through, I've got it free.
But that doesn't take away what you have.
No.
As the way,
and it's taken me years to accept that. So I guess that's why I talk about it so much. In the stand-up routines, it's sort of like, well, if I'm like this, then I've got to be the voice that helps all of us along there, so people get a greater understanding of, oh, mate, you say you've got PTSD. Would you mind telling me what your triggers are so I don't deliver those triggers to you, and actually make somebody feel safer and accepted, rather than go, oh, just go and have another beer, take a tablet, and just man up, and we'll get past it.
Definitely. You need that conversation, and actually, that's a good thing, because you don't want, someone walking up behind you and it's trying to start a conga, and you turn around.
Oh, it's happened. It's happened. Gee.
Do you know what? I'll get it. This is so. By day, historically, have been essentially in sales, various different levels, various types of companies, various projects, etc. Usually quite high level sales. But I worked for this company, and a few years ago, this is just before COVID actually, and gone away for this company's kind of kick-off meeting, big meeting. Everyone for the company's there. We're over in Wales. The sun's shining. The hotel's beautiful. 4 days of just slideshows and wine. Right, free food. It was beautiful. It was a nice, easy life.
Wine makes up for it. The wine makes
up for it. Good company. Otherwise, the job was very much on the road, so you're on your own a lot. So it's nice to be in that environment. We had a guest speaker, and the guest speaker, this always makes me laugh, was Ant Middleton. So he does the SAS program.
Oh yes. So he's done the BBC Two show.
SAS. I know. I started watching my son because he was. It's actually a very good show. But SAS. They basically go for that. I don't know, 6, 10, 18-week training camp or whatever.
I know that.
And so he at this point, I had absolutely no idea who he was. So he's kind of introduced that as the guest speaker, a motivational speaker.
Yep.
And so we were sitting there, this room full of science bods and salespeople. Not one of us has ever left the country apart from to go and catch some sun. And he's telling us about his time in Afghanistan. So he was part of SAS and Special Forces and all this stuff.
Yep.
And he was saying about how he's stood there waiting to go through a door where he knows there's someone with a gun on the other side. And he had the confidence that when his comrade, his fellow was next to him, put his hand on his shoulder, he knew someone's with him. He burst through the door and he got the job done. Yep. And nothing but respect for people in the forces. but I work 37 and a half hours a week talking, selling stuff. And you know what? I just thought, this doesn't relate to me. Like, this is madness. Like, this guy telling me about real stuff to try and inspire me. And actually, a comedy stand-up show would probably relate to me more, because I understand that, rather than being put in this situation where I'm expected to relate to someone going through and him and his troop versus everyone else versus me.
I can just see the transferable skills you gained as a salesman, because now, just before you go into a sales meeting, you line up a brick of 5 men behind you going, are we ready? Engage, take the door down, put everybody on the floor, going, I have your attention, I'm selling you this shit.
Exactly.
That is the only way it's going to work
that's
for you.
Basically, that's how I sell now. That's if I don't kick down at least one door a day, then
you've done it wrong.
I've not achieved anything. But
if you're not actually going into the room carrying an SA-80, assault rifle and a Glock 9 beater cut down your back, you're not selling the goods properly. You're not using all the tools available to you.
That's it. I mean, for me, it's not really the gun; it's a business card holder and a fancy pen. But it's similar.
They're just as lethal, mate. They're just as lethal. Have you watched John Wick? Yeah. I mean, come on. You've got to become the John Wick of salesmen.
You've essentially just called me John Wick. I'm taking that. I'm the John Wick of sales. Oh man. But
there's your next comedy set you can write for yourself. After that experience, you've decided you've now got to become the John Wick of salesmen, that you're going to kill them with business cards and the occasional pen.
Keanu Reeves, I've also matured very well. So I tell my. I don't like that laugh, Jay. These people can't see us. It's not recorded.
No, I still keep on using my late father-in-law's line of, growing old is compulsory, growing up is optional. I'm immaturing mentally, but I'm maturing physically. That is the best way to be.
That is, I'm this kind of melting pool right now of the fact that I was a young dad, and so my eldest, who's 23, has blessed me with grandkids. So they're both two little ones. And but I've got this interesting thing where I'm 41. I'm a granddad. My body very much.
You absolute puppy.
Oh, I know.
41, you puppy.
My body very much agrees with this whole granddad moniker that's been put on it. But my mind is still like, well, I find farts funny. So.
Do excuse the background noise. This is the joys of living on a yacht in Haslam Marina. There's a ship going out the marina.
I see, literally that close to the boats.
I'm literally about 100 yards away from the entrance mouth of Portsmouth Harbour.
Wow. Well, you can't get close. Can't take the sea dog out of the ocean, eh?
But let's put it this way: living on a yacht for the last 5 years, I've got far more sea time in my civilian life than I ever did in my service life. Because as I said, they made me serve with the army. I've seen more of bloody Africa on the land than I have in
famously a lot of land in Africa.
A total land thing.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, but living on a yacht for the last 5 years. I mean, you're basically Roman Abramovich right now. So kind of.
Oh, I friggin' wish. I bought this thing for about 20 odd grand. And that's become my home because when I had PTSD, my entire life fell apart. But it's my home, it's my safe space. And I look over the last 5 years. It's time for me to move ashore. But I can actually see the results of my recovery and my management of my PTSD. And they're going, I need to move ashore. I need to get on the comedy scene. I need to travel around the country. I want to get a Manchester in gig. I want to get a Liverpool in gig rather than just be stuck on my boat in the harbour. And it's only comedy and doing things like I'm a very keen archer. So I've been really beyond proud that I've just been selected for this year's Team UK going to the Invictus Games in Düsseldorf this year. I call archery meditation with weapons. It is a beautiful sport that I love beyond belief.
All about the breathing.
It's all about the breathing. You've got to be repetitive. So you've got to get your body and brain to do the same thing a minimum of 72 hours at a time. It's a brilliant management tool. And that's what, and the guys asked me to do stand-up sets when we go to training camps. So we've got a laugh there. And I'm working with guys with significant brain injuries, limbs missing, guys running on blades, guys playing wheelchair. Have you ever seen wheelchair rugby?
I've not seen wheelchair rugby.
The Americans call it murder. They call it murder ball. It is the most violent sport imaginable. It's worse than ice hockey. Anybody listening to this, and especially you, Geoff, look up on YouTube wheelchair rugby and watch a game, and you will not believe how these disabled athletes kill each other on a pitch. So when you come to watch the Invictus games, these people will inspire you. It's like the Paralympics for wounded, injured, and sick veterans. Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, it is fun because it was. Do we still call him Prince Harry? But it was Prince Harry's baby, wasn't it? Who?
Yeah, it's still his baby now. He still runs. He's still the head of the Invictus Foundation and what have you. So he's undoubtedly going to be out with us out in Dusseldorf, what have you. No matter what anybody says about him or what's going through his personal life and what have you, that boy still loves veterans. Yeah. His principal concern is making sure that we get opportunities to decent recovery. Sport is just one way of it. But so, yeah, people can say what they want about him, but what he's actually doing for me, yeah, he's all right in my eyes. He's all right in my eyes because he is literally personally helping me.
Cannot say fairer than that. Can't say fairer than that.
But I will tell some jokes about him.
Yeah.
Come on, he's ginger. You've got to.
It's impossible not to. So you mentioned a couple of times, about your being in the Navy, but spending more time on land. My very, very good friend of mine, if he listens to this, I'm sorry, Gary, but he always harps on. He's very, very, very proud ex-naval guy, and we love him to bit, and that's fantastic. The guy spent 20 years as a cook, and I'd never let him. Probably the most important person on the ship, but I still
the person that maintains the morale of the ship. One bad meal and that ship is going down fast.
But I do. I mean, but again, it's because I've never been in that environment. I've never been on a boat away for the most heartbreaking thing ever. And more.
And just because, right, Gary, I'm going to correct him for you.
Oh God,
right, boats are submarines. Boats are submarines. We see the surface fleet work on ships.
Oh.
All right, so ships on the surface, boats below. So that's purely for you, Gary, mate. Matlows stand together.
Oh, dearie me. Yeah, all with your weirdo tattoos.
No, I'm an officer. I wasn't allowed to get any.
My apologies, sir. Do you know what? I do have a lot of friends because I live Portsmouth way. I'm down the south, so it's impossible not to find a Matlow. And
there's always a skate within 20 yards of you, mate. It's worse than rats in London.
But they are. Like one of my close friends, his brother goes away for 9 months. With a lot of the stuff that's happened recently in the world. He's cool because he's an officer and he's just kind of called away and he says goodbye to his family. And for me, just the thought of that alone is enough to send my anxiety. I mean, I've always said that I am a strong person when needed, but I'm not strong enough to be a nurse in the forces. Those kind of things. It's just a mentality. Mate, I would put a lot of it down to being a young dad. And having
I wouldn't, because I'd turn around and go, my maternal family are police officers. There's no way on God's earth I could ever have the courage to be a police officer. I'll walk into a firefight because a firefight is probably going to last about 5 minutes, and there are rounds going over my head. But you look at what a police officer does in, day out. They see the worst side of humanity on a daily basis. I could not do that job. I do not have, even when I served 23 years, I would never have had the mental resilience to do that for a career.
No.
When I ended up placing myself in harm's way, it was occasionally. It's the hurry up to wait. Police officers do that on the daily. No, I couldn't do that. So I've got huge respect in that aspect.
Oh, definitely. And when you look at the NHS stuff, the first responders, for people who are out there doing good and making a difference and treated badly by the drunks and people who are there to help, and I say police, and I just say I don't have that. Maybe I'm too selfish. And it was I know I'm probably too selfish actually.
You say that one of the guys I was performing Gags Army with in Brighton, so Gabriel, our army comedian, after he left the army with complex PTSD, he ended up joining the paramedic service in Birmingham. And he even turns around and goes, I felt safer when I was fighting in Afghan than I did when I was paramedic.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
The bloody Taliban have rules of engagement. A drunk Mancunian doesn't. That's what I keep on saying. Find the dark stuff and find the humor in it.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah, safer around that's oh god, dear me. That's this is I'm absolutely loving this, because it's opened my eyes to just this whole world. I mean, I've always had respect for and I say always respect for people who do jobs that they're completely selfless. I mean, yes, I am the John Wick of sales. I'm
so glad I've given you that moniker.
I've also evolved it to the Batman of business development, which
hello.
So
how do you get a batarang into a Gantt chart?
Yeah, I just I what about it? I mean, this is something which isn't going away. I'm going to have badges made. But yeah, kind of a group of people, or I know all the servicemen and women. Like when I thought I couldn't have any more respect for, or I've certainly gained more understanding along with more respect for it. It's quite amazing. But all that leaves us to do now is been an amazing chat, but we do need to find a way to make this better. I am completely unqualified, so I'm going to take your lead on this, Jay. How are we making this all better?
I suppose the first point is to realise that when somebody turns around and tells you they've got a psychiatric disorder, it is different from what we've grown accustomed to as what is mental health. A psychiatric disorder isn't depression, it isn't anxiety, it's something more severe.
Yeah.
So just that little bit of understanding. But actually, I love what was come out of this actual podcast episode. I think the way we make it better is when you encounter somebody with something like PTSD, schizophrenia, those sort of multiple personality disorders and what have you, why not treat them like Geoff's dog? You be kinder to Geoff's dog. You treat it with understanding. Treat that individual with a bit of understanding. Chuck him a little bit of love. Ask him, if you've got to look after Geoff's dog, you'd instantly be asking, what do I have to do to make sure this dog is comfortable? How do I make him feel safe? How do I actually let him know that he's being loved? Yeah, I am now Geoff's dog. I am changing my title on every one of my social media channels. I want to be treated like Geoff's dog. Ask me a question on how you can keep me healthy. That would be the way you make it better.
And what's even better is you can actually answer those questions as well. Whereas with Neville, it's trial and error. Humans can communicate it. So why do we not? Yeah. Why do we not talk about it? Why do we not share? Okay, not everyone wants to share. That's fine, but why don't people take the time, instead of running away, instead of having their own judgment or their own idea? Why doesn't everyone kind of, I know, just in general life as well? Well, not everyone knows the crap that everyone else has gone through. Not everyone knows that. Yeah, if I saw you walking down the street, I'd have absolutely no idea your history if it wasn't for talking on here. So why would I make a judgment, or why would I be an arse or whatever? At least Neville's got the balls to just turn and start barking at someone just because he really doesn't like the look of you. Oh no, you don't even need to like the look of him.
Neville can now have legendary status. Neville's now got to be promoted to the same legendary status now. He's got to be moved up. Winston Churchill used to talk about depression as when the black dog visits. So if you see the black dog, we're talking about depression. Let's use either hashtag Neville or hashtag Geoff's dog to say, now I'm talking about a psychiatric injury or a psychiatric condition. Let's have a slightly different conversation. Show the same love to somebody with a psychiatric condition as you would give Neville's dog. You know, so Neville's dog, you've suddenly been demoted, mate. Sorry.
I always am. I love that, because he does get a rough ride, but as a status, I think it's right. I can't improve on that. Let's show humans the love and compassion you would show my dog, or at least the same understanding that if he starts barking, it's not someone to be avoided, it's someone to be treated just a little bit differently, and understood, not chastised or avoided.
Absolutely. You're not going to give a marathon bar to somebody with a nut allergy. So let's do exactly the same.
Did you just call it a marathon bar?
Oh, God, I am that old. It's Snickers now.
Only for about the last 25 years or more.
Mate, I'm 54 and mental. What did you expect me to do?
Oh, hang on. You can't just start putting that card out when you get the name of a 30-year-old's chocolate bar wrong. You can't, that won't fly, you know.
Hey, you don't say I'm going out grooming people and using the wrong terminology.
If you want to go sit in the corner, I will be, hey, you go sit in all the corners you want to, but you start throwing around marathons and was it Star Bars and
Opal fruit.
Opal fruit. That's where I draw the line, Jay. That's the line.
I've got Gen X Tourette's, mate. That's what it is. I've developed Generation X Tourette's.
Oh, man. Oh, brilliant. Right. Jay, it's been amazing. It's been educational. It's been I know it's been amazing, and so the reason why I love doing this, because I'm nobody, and people tell me their stories, and people tell me things that just blows my mind every time, and I can't thank you enough for coming on, for sharing. You're on the back of your Brighton tour, and just the fact that you found time for me, on your Russian oligarch's yacht is.
I would. I'd like to inform the Inland Revenue it's not all.
If anyone from the Inland Revenue is here, so that was just a joke, of which I did not get paid for. Okay, right. I'm going to put a stamp in it. I think hashtag.
Oh, did you want to do socials?
Yeah, hashtag Geoff's dog. Hashtag Neville. Do it for Neville. Treat everyone like Neville.
If I could plug a couple of charities and social media links, I'd love to.
Please. Where are you? What are you up to? Where can we find you? All the links will go in the bio. So reel them off. Tell us all about
it. So on the major socials, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, you can find me as Comic Jay Saunders, just the letter J. So Comic Jay Saunders. The three charity parts that really help me. So we've got Project Comedy. So if you look up Project Comedy Group on Facebook, you can find out what all our comedians are doing. We advertise all of our gigs there. The parent charity for that is Project Recce. They help veterans get into construction industry jobs, and they finance Project Comedy. And then on the Invictus Games side of life, you'll find me on Facebook as Invictus J. And if you just follow the Royal British Legion on any of their social media channels, you'll actually watch this amazing team get ready to go to Dusseldorf this September. So if you're going to follow anybody, follow the Invictus Game crowd and Project Comedy, because we've got some amazing and inspiring people in there. Me, I'm just an also-ran.
Oh, thank you, Jack. I will put all of that in the bio. I put a lot of stuff out on Twitter anyway for the show when I'm not drunk and moaning about politics or football. I really should get 2 accounts. But no, I'll make sure it's all in there. And I can't wait to listen to this back, and just thank you so much for joining me,
mate. I'm choking.
That's it. Game over. You survived all this just to.
That's me just welling up with love, mate. It was me welling up with love. I was swallowing my own. No, I've loved this. This has been absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. And look, tell all your friends, tell all your group. Anyone else wants to come in? And yeah.
Oh, that's another random one. We also run a podcast called the Project Comedy Podcast. So me, Gabe, and Jamie are the regular attendees on that. It's talking about how veterans can get into stand-up comedy. It's not a comedy podcast, but we are rude, we are funny. But it's, any comedian can listen to it, maybe learn from it. Do follow along for that, and we will make sure you get a massive shout out on the podcast as well.
Well, I will definitely subscribe to at least that one episode, because apart from that, apart from that,
yeah, well, one's better than none. One's better than none.
Well, hey, we'll get Gabe and who's
Jamie Johnson.
Jamie Johnson. Call out to them to come and join me as well. Okay, Jay, all there is left for me to say is thank you very much. And
you are more than welcome.
Thank you very much to anyone and everyone who has listened. I think it's been a fantastic show. If you knew someone is in the forces, then or a veteran of the forces, then get them to check out everything that Jay has spoken about. And all that's left is for me to say, goodbye from me, and goodbye from Jay. Say goodbye, Jay.
Goodbye, folks. Thanks for listening to me.